Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our weekly Ask the Doc call. It is such a pleasure to be here always with Dr. Carolyn Hoffman. My name is Lynn Matthews. And if this is the first time you are joining us, I am very excited about what you're going to learn. Many people who come to this, especially the first time, really have never heard of the word redox or what it means. And so for me, I believe Dr. Hoffman is probably one of the most eloquent speakers on this topic. She puts it into language that all of us can understand so that we really come to see how profound this breakthrough really is. Redox is the energy that powers all life. Really, nothing happens in our bodies, our pets' bodies, without a redox reaction. And people look at this for a number of different reasons. Some of you are here tonight because you have a health challenge. Something in your body is not doing what it was supposed to do. And you're looking to see if this could potentially be part of the solution. Maybe you're here because it's a friend, a neighbor, a loved one who has a challenge, and you're looking at this and kind of exploring it on their behalf. Some people are here because they've heard there is an athletic benefit. Whether you are someone who just likes to go to the gym and work out, whether you run marathons, whether you like to bike and hike like I do, or whether you compete. You know, we've got Olympic athletes on this, but you don't have to be an athlete at that level to get the athletic benefits, the endurance, the recovery, the mental focus. All of us could use that in our lives, right? And then some people are here because, as Danny Doyle was talking about, he was talking about the whole anti-aging aspect of this. Most of us think about anti-aging and we're looking at, what we see in the mirror. But as Dr. Carolyn says many times, what you see in the mirror, those wrinkles and the changes are just a reflection of what's happening on the inside. So people are wondering, well, how does this impact aging? And we're going to talk about that as well. So there are a number of reasons people look at this. The most important thing for us, though, is that you get your questions answered. So as Dr. Hoffman goes through her presentation, down on the bottom of the Zoom, there's a little chat box. If you click on that, you can put your questions in there. And at the end of the presentation, we will go back and talk about and go in and look at all your questions and make sure they get answered. So know that we will stay on as long as you have questions. Our goal is always to be off by the top of the hour, but that depends on how many questions you guys have. So without further ado, I would love to introduce a dear friend and colleague, Dr. Carolyn Hoffman. She is in Charlottesville, Virginia. She is a traditional naturopath. She's been in that field for over 22 years. And she really sits in a unique position for these calls because she is on the medical professional board for this company. So not only does she bring her knowledge from her profession with her, but she also really understands this technology and these products at a level that most of us don't. And so, like I said before, she really explains it with wonderful analogies. So Carolyn, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Thanks very much, Lynn. Good evening, everybody. We always enjoy sharing this knowledge with you. And I just want to start by saying that, as Lynn said, if this is something you haven't heard of before, welcome to the club. We all have reached that point at some point in our journey. So you're just a little bit further behind some of us who've been here for a while. But at some point, this was always a new thing, right? What is redox? Hadn't heard of it. We're going to talk and share with you the history of redox. And just know that, in fact, even if you don't know about this, you're ahead of so many percentage of the medical field, even to this point, who will not know what redox is and certainly don't know of the development that we're going to share with you. I want to share some slides so that we can see some visuals, not just talk at you. And hopefully I'm going to make common sense of this for you by the time we finish. Let me get rid of these and maybe make that full screen. Lynn, can you just give me thumbs up that we can see that? Okay, cool. I want to set the premise for this evening because I think that this statement, this piece of something that was published back in 2016 in the field of radical biology and medicine, free radical biology and medicine, sets the stage for why what we're going to talk about is literally, I believe, the most empowering piece of information that you're likely to come across in the next decade, that gives you the opportunity to empower yourself to do something at this point that is not a drug, that is non-toxic, that you can't be allergic to, because as Lynn said, it is in you and it's in our pets and it's in our plants. We're making these molecules, these signaling messengers as we speak, and they are involved, as this tells us, with the fact that redox signaling is observed in aging. Well, here's the unfortunate message, right? We're all getting older every single day. We are a day older than we were before. And we don't necessarily think about where aging begins, but this alteration in redox is observed in aging, and we're going to explain the reasons why. But they now know that redox signaling is essential to the physiological homeostasis, in other words, health and balance. And that sustained deviation, and that's going to be an important piece in explaining why we all go through sustained deviation, in other words, sustained loss of balance. And that sustained deviation from redox homeostasis results in disease. I'm sure that we all share the goal that we do not want disease, right? We want to live, and we want to live optimally, however long that is. We want to be healthy, however long that is. So this is going to give you a clue to being able to do something that directly impacts that aging process. And if we can interrupt that, slow it down, empower it to be stronger for longer through our life, then we can hopefully get to the end of our life without seeing those disease processes. So let's talk a little bit about the clue there as to why the RED is in blue and the OX is in ox in that redox piece in the history. So we're actually looking way back in the 60s. This is where this field of free radical biology and medicine begun. By the late 90s, this Nobel Prize is the first of 6 that have been awarded in this field. We know a huge amount about why these molecules are involved in every function of the human body, but this interest is what has spurred all of the deep research that is going on worldwide that tells us a lot about the mechanisms to do with why it sustains health and why we get disease when things go wrong. Here's just a brief example of US-based and globally based universities and centers for research who are all looking deeply into the mechanisms of redox biology. If you're a research geek, go take a look at the National Institutes of Health and you'll see about 350,000 published studies from around the world. And then when you've read all of those, go take a look at Google Scholar. And then we've got about another 3 million for you. And these are the gray papers. This is where you'll find real research. Just a heads up, don't waste your time on just Google itself. It's a search engine. It's not a research engine. You'll find a lot of opinion that's extremely misleading because they haven't bothered to do the research and actually understand the mechanism of this breakthrough in the field of redox biology that we'll share. You might get a clue there that what was thought of as free radical biology actually changed its whole name to being redox biology and medicine, because they recognize that this is not just about free radicals, and you may be familiar with that word, and oxidants and inflammation, but actually something much bigger and much more influential. But this is part of what spurred an annual world conference in Paris, France, since the early 2000s. And so we know a lot about what's going on. Burtis Norton, a retired VP of strategy for Kraft Food, is the influential person here, along with his son, Tyler Norton, who crossed paths with a publicly traded company that had already been working in this field of redox biology for about 10 years. They had a lot of patented research, and they were going down the intended drug route with things like cardiovascular disease, HIV, and also cystic fibrosis. If you know much about going down the medical route and trying to get there, you have to do some pretty awful things on the way. You actually have to test your potential drug on some collection of poor animals, and you have to keep on feeding them this drug until it kills 50% of them. Yippee, the FDA say, now you know what the lethal dose is. The lethal dose 50. Every drug has an LD 50. In other words, they know how much of it will kill 50% of the population. At that point, they consider it now perfectly acceptable to test it out on human beings, which is really interesting. So now we get the FDA trials on humans, and they obviously can't give as much to kill 50% of us, but every drug has a lethal dose. Every drug will kill you. Every drug has the potential for side effects, has the potential to interact with each other or with nutritional products that you're taking. So there's always a downside to a drug. The beauty of what we're talking about today is that what we have, as I mentioned, is totally non-toxic. Can't be allergic to it, and beautifully, it does not interfere with medication. So this is just safe for everybody. But Verdis Norton was involved in this, and he spotted how significant this research that this company was doing. And at a point when their technology was going to be sold off, being a typical businessman, he spotted a business opportunity. And he put together an investment group. He purchased the 10 years of publicly traded and patented work at that point and brought on a new group of scientists. He challenged them to do what science at that point has said was not possible. These molecules are highly volatile. They're made within every single cell, every nanosecond that we're alive. And so science sort of said, you know, it's impossible to stabilize something that volatile and active outside the human body in any form whatsoever. How do you kind of grasp a spark? But they did what was considered impossible. They actually stabilized these highly active molecules in a bioactive form outside the human body with a lifespan of 12 months. This is back in 2007. Why was that significant? Well, he had been drinking these molecules that they generate in little machines when he had come to connect with this company. And he had begun to feel the benefits of drinking the molecules, which is kind of why he knew that there was a business opportunity there. But this was a business opportunity that was going to be sold to a pharmaceutical company. And at a certain point, Bar Pharmaceutical stepped into the picture and offered them a life-changing sum of money to purchase it. But the pivot point is key to the ethos of this company and what drives the mission of us to empower the lives of other people and to be a force for good in the world, because this company wanted to close down that technology and the research. And we're going to talk a little bit more as we move on about how that impacted that opportunity to make a huge amount of money and just walk away. Was really an inflection point as to where this company went. If you want to know the full story, go and look at discoverredox.com on the ASEA Genesis, but Lynn will kind of fill us into why it's the driving piece. So in 2007, here we are, we now established a brand new category of field. Nothing this hadn't existed before. Stabilized redox to the signaling molecules hadn't been created. We've got a new category that doesn't fit anywhere either. And to this day, we're actually still the only company on the market who's managed to do what we've done, because this product cannot be reverse engineered. But it is clinically tested, as I said, to be non-toxic, non-allergic, won't interfere with medication, and safe for everyone. In fact, it's safer than many supplements. If you notice, hospitals will ask you what supplements you're taking, because supplements have the potential, even if they're good, to interfere with medication and cause life-threatening issues. So they're good, but they're not necessarily good for everyone. And that's what's so beautiful about this, is that this is safe for everyone regardless. This product is manufactured to the highest standards possible. It's validated independently by third-party facilities around the world who are themselves redox experts. They take the batches, they test them, and they validate for you and me, if we're drinking this, that we're not drinking just salt and water. And we'll talk about that little piece in a second. But we're actually drinking these certified redox signaling molecules. And you can see we meet multiple standards. So in other words, this is our personal guarantee that what we're paying for is what we actually get. This is where the magic happens, that we have one facility for the world's supply of this product technology. Why? Because we have multiple patents. We have hundreds of proprietary protections around this brilliant and groundbreaking science. And we actually go through moving this product in 16 hours now. Our science has changed so much in the last 12 years that we've gone from what initially took 3.5 days to make to being 16 hours. That's how much we can dial in, and we know so much about what we're doing. This is where the product goes around the world. It comes from this facility in Utah, and it is shipped to 19 distribution centers that provide product distribution to every customer in 33 countries in the world. Now, the Huffington Post by 2014 was actually talking about this technology, not just redox technology, but a Sears product as being a groundbreaking piece of one of 5 technologies that they felt were likely to shape our future. That's how significant this is. And medical experts over time, as they've come to know this, actually talk about the breakthrough in redox biology this way as being equal to the breakthrough and discovery of DNA or penicillin. So this kind of shows you just how influential it is. So what are redox molecules, and why do they really matter to us? Well, as Lynn mentioned, they are the energy that powers all life. Redox signaling molecules are part of our normal physiology. In other words, you, me, as I said, pets and plants are making them as we speak. They're the energy of every cell in order for it to function. So nothing happens without this energy. Our cells are constantly communicating back and forth so that we can breathe and work and live and do all the things that we want to do. And redox signaling is their communication system for finding damaged cells that are going to cause disease, even if we actually can't feel those damaged cells taking place. These are our master molecules, and because we're all in the field of electrical communication, positive and negative charges, they turn on and off cellular switches on every single cell in the body. These switches, these on-off switches, trigger these multiple cascades throughout the human body to actually create the signals that we're looking for. So we're affecting everything. Now, redox signals do a number of key things to make sure that we stay healthy. As I said, they detect damaged cells, problem cells. They protect the natural lifespan of a healthy cell. We want that to be the case. If you have an eye cell, it's not around very long any more than a stomach cell is. But if you have a bone cell that's going to last maybe 6 to 7 years, you want that lifespan to be healthy. We also fuel the ability to repair damage and trauma to the body, as well as kill off old or dead cells or cells that are doing things like the ones that Danny Doyle talked about. They have a conversation in their body that we absolutely don't want to happen. So we want redox to detect where those bad cells are, kill them off, and then replace them with nice new healthy cells. And over the last couple of years, this is probably the adaptive response is probably the most important thing for everyone to have stayed in a healthy space. And the ability for the body to detect when there's a threat around from a bacteria or a virus or environmental toxins and pesticides, that's what keeps our immune system working at full capacity. I mentioned the OX of redox. That stands for the oxidants. This word redox is reductants and oxidants. That's how they've put it together. The positive charges, electrical charges, and they're really the alarm bell, right? The things that actually send up the alarm when a damaged and unhealthy cell has been detected. They signal where they are and they call for help from the body to actually repair and replace those damaged cells. Reductants, the negative charges, are like the fire and rescue. So the alarm bell goes off and the fire and rescue, because they know when you call them to come where you live, they're going to find you and they're going to help put out that fire and solve the problem. Now, when we have healthy cells, they have a lot of resistance, resilience, stress resilience in them, and they can respond very quickly to those calls for help, and they can solve the problem. In other words, we heal. But as things change, that resilience, that ability to be adaptable alters, and so we don't get that same response. That's why we heal faster when we're younger, and our cells are more resilient and responsive, and this alters with age. Now, if you know someone, for example, who can tell you, well, I have diabetes and this runs through my family. You know, my grandfather had it, my father had it, I've got it, you know, my children are showing signs of it as well. That's a sign that cells are damaged and genes expression is going wrong. In other words, perpetuating the wrong conversation generationally through one person to the other. And so we don't want that. We need to know that those signals are nice and strong. And in 2016, a study done on the ASEA redox actually showed that 100% of the test group using the ASEA redox signaling supplement experienced a 20 to 31% beneficial change and stable change in this gene signaling expression. What this did was that it proves that it helps to protect and rejuvenate and restore healthy cells. You can see those are the 5 gene pathways that had this uniform improvement: having a healthy immune response, inflammatory response, cardiovascular health with vein elasticity, improving gut health and digestive enzyme production, and hormone balance and modulating vitality. This was an 8-week double-blind placebo-controlled study done on what are considered healthy 35-year-olds. Now, they didn't know until they did a preliminary test of their genetic expression in their blood work that their genes had already started turning off by the time they were 35, probably because we're already losing our redox function. What is fascinating is also that the placebo was the saline. So when we look at things that say, well, this is just salt water, here we are. We actually gave it pure salt water, and the pure salt water had no response in a placebo effect at all. Those are very unique results, and 100% on people actually consuming the ASEA and 0 on placebo. I mentioned that this triggers signaling messengers that are cascade actions through the body. And here's an example of the cascade through that gene signaling pathway, the inflammatory signaling pathway. Take a look at what's in blue. Because if that signaling pathway is healthy, then we're not going to have those challenges. But if it's not working at its optimal, if those genes are not having an optimal conversation, those are the likely challenges that someone's going to feel and experience in their life. You know, poor mood, not feeling happy, feeling overwhelmed, anxious, maybe depressed. That ties in with gut health. You can't get away. Those two things go together. Signaling pathways for thyroid, that's that hormonal thing, improving the way our brain functions. And you know what? Everybody needs pathway 3. We all need to sleep. That is the ultimate inbuilt method for restoration, right? That's why we call it rest, because it helps the body restore. Interestingly, one of our own independent studies reflect pathway number 4, the NRF2 pathway. What we do when we drink ASEA is we have an 800% improvement in the efficacy of our own glutathione. If you haven't heard of that word, it is your master antioxidant. And the older we are and the sicker we are, the less glutathione we have. And it is well documented to be tied to 82 known diseases. So it's a really important thing to make sure that we're keeping efficient and at peak performance. If you take glutathione supplements, you might be one of those people who say, well, I take a glutathione supplement. Just to let you know that glutathione supplements are pretty inefficient at actually crossing cell membranes, because glutathione is a large molecule. And so really very little of it actually gets to impact us. And so this is the most important one. It's like turning on a light bulb in every single cell in the human body, so that we're producing multiple antioxidants all over the body. It's like having a sprinkler system go on. Now, whether you have stress that is emotional or physical or nutritional, right, this is where we see these challenges in health. Health is the ability, as I said, to respond to stress at that cellular level and to combat the damage that we have in order to stay in balance. And when we can't respond, things begin to go wrong. We have to be able to respond. So we see here the external, right, reflection of that internal wrinkling, that damage at a cellular level inside builds up over time and really reflects itself on the outside. So if we want to combat that deviation, that sustained deviation from homeostasis, from balance, redox balance, we have this amazing ability to take control of that and do something to slow that process down and interrupt that breakdown of aging. We've had a mention a few times about salt, right? So why does redox signaling, when we're making it, start with salt water? What are we, right? We are a collection of about 70 to 100 trillion cells that are full of saline. If you go to the hospital, you might well end up with being given a saline drip, because your cells have to be well hydrated for electrical communication to happen. Remember, this is in the field of signaling that we're talking about. If in the summer, you go to the swimming pool and there is some lightning or thunder being heard, right? They get you out of the pool pretty quickly, because we all know that electricity travels really well through water. So we want to be hydrated if we want our communication to be working at a whip speed. But where does it come from? What do we do with that saline? Well, the body inside the mitochondria, inside every cell, breaks up the components of the saline into sodium chloride, hydrogen, and oxygen. It's why so many people talk about this as just salt water. But the cells convert that, they reorganize it into these multiple redox signaling messengers. And so in our process, we have to replicate exactly what the cells are doing in order to be able to produce this patented technology. We can't have any other component in there. No minerals, literally nothing. You can't take just regular salt or Himalayan salt, because none of it would work if there's anything more than those 4 components. And let's talk about, as I mentioned, the most powerful thing that you can do for yourself, which is to bio-replenish the levels of redox. We are actually seeing this deviation start as early as 15. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? None of us are thinking about the fact that we're aging when we're looking in the mirror at 15, but it's actually already happening. We begin to lose these signals at 1% per year. So we're getting down by 10% per decade. And if we know that science is telling us a sustained deviation from having 100% of the redox that we start with when we're young results in disease, then wouldn't we want to bio-replenish, rebuild those signals and actually slow down that loss? Now, what we see is when people drink around 4 to 8 ounces a day, different changes will happen. Everybody has a unique need, and that's what makes this product also particularly unique. This is not just everybody takes 1 tablet every single day. The quantity you're going to need to address your personal aging rate in today and deal with anything that you're bringing with you as an unfinished health project will vary from you to maybe your spouse. You might have a great response at 4 ounces, that they might need 8 ounces. And so that's part of what you get from the person who shared this with you and invited you here today. They help you go through your health journey to make sure that you optimize this product. Our symptoms in our body kind of line up in a form of importance that the body determines. And that can be a little tricky because sometimes we can come to the table wanting one particular outcome, but in fact, the body may decide that we have something that we're not yet aware of that actually is a bigger priority, and it will direct it where it's needed. Now, the biggest impact from rebuilding your signals on a daily basis is seen by the time we do 3 months sustained use of this and beyond. Why is that? Because every day that you add some more back in, you're going to be changing up new cells to be healthier, more energetic cells. And over time, you have more and more of those that are better equipped to keep you in health. Now, we will say that if you take 4 ounces a day for the first week, about 10 to 15% of people will see some shift. But that leaves 95% of us kind of waiting for our aha moment. And so we will often recommend that you replicate what we do in the clinical studies. If at the end of that first week you haven't seen anything, and benchmark everything about your health and track it with your friend, we say double up. Go to what we often think of as the magic 8. It was the pivot point for me in watching what happened to my husband, who had had 22 years of not being able to exercise and breathe adequately. And in 2 weeks, this was a miraculous change for him when he hit the 8-ounce amount. So this magic amount is because we supersaturate those cells. We put more in, and we really move the process of helping the body find its path to better health much quicker. So we would say in that first month in particular, be willing to put more in, because you're going to help accelerate the outcome and support your body to do it much faster. Lynn mentioned that we support a lot of Olympic and professional athletes, and as she correctly said, we don't need to be one of those to have the benefits. But in clinical studies, we know the reason why they love it is because it provides a 29% increase in endurance and recovery. Think about what that would mean to have 29% improvement in your energy supply. What are you not getting done in the day so far because your batteries run out of the amount of energy necessary for you to do the things that you'd love to do? Maybe you can go back to pickleball in the evening. Maybe you can actually get out and ski again with your family. Who knows what that can look like, but it can certainly change everyone's life. Having sharper mental focus is essential for all of us, especially as we age. It's another reason that they use this. Using it in a certain way is enabling the body to also burn fatty acids from the body instead of sugar. That can actually translate itself into different forms of weight loss for some people. We don't promote this as a weight loss product, but it is part of the energetic use of it that actually can feel that for people. If you're interested in what all of these athletes are doing with it, do take a look at the Discover Redox athlete page. I want to talk about what took 5 years to create with the Redox Renew 28. This is taking these volatile molecules and finding how can we put them in something, how can we suspend them in something that means we can apply them to the skin, but without activating them until they come in contact with us. Well, it was a 5-year project for Renew 28, and we have the topical application. It's extremely popular with the athletes because it does amazing things for helping sore muscles, improving skin function. Although most of us use it for the anti-aging benefits, but there are some other really cool pieces. Our newest product, Redox Clay Mask, and it has been on the market, I think maybe about 3 or 4 weeks now. And that is another 3-year project in discovering that we could suspend redox in a bentonite and actually really empower the use of bentonite in a way that's never been done before for a clay mask benefit. That has phenomenal benefits for the skin and we love it. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the Renew 28. Lynn mentioned that, we can help support people by sharing this technology with them, by inviting them to become educated and learn about it. But I will tell you that it's very unlikely that you're going to see something in 10 minutes with the liquid. But there is a great way to know what this does. And if you're kind of skeptical, this is really the best thing to do while you're waiting for your personal journey and outcome with the liquid. Take the technology, this gel technology, and go find 10 people who have something that hurt. right? I did this in my clinic. This is how I validated for myself. Was this something I wanted to use in my practice? Did it have a value? And if so, what was that? And would people want it? So I asked people that came in if they had something that hurt, would they do me a favor and give me feedback? And that's a hint for you, right? Just go find a friend who's got something that hurts and say, I've got something I want to try out. Do me a favor. Can you give me some feedback and let me know? Because when you watch this on more than just one person, you're going to see how quickly the body responds to these signals and does amazing things. So let's suppose that you've got knees that don't bend so well, right? They hurt to climb the stairs. And if you climb the stairs, you can only maybe get halfway up the stairs. You need to rest. Maybe that level of discomfort from a 1 to 10 is at least an 8 for you. And so you kind of have measured your level of discomfort. Do that with whatever it is, whether it's a stiff neck, whether it's fingers, elbow joints, backs. It doesn't matter what it is that hurts or doesn't move. Just rate it for yourself on a 1 to 10. Take the gel. As I mentioned, this is the liquid that they found a way to suspend. So you'll see that the silica, you can't even see it. It's a totally clear gel. And I want you to apply that gel to an area that hurts for you. You'll see that it's completely clear, it's colorless, it doesn't smell of anything. Of course, we all love it for the anti-aging side of it. But I want you to apply it to whatever hurts 3 times in a 5-minute period. Wait another 5 minutes and then go check out those creaky knees again. See how easily or how any change has taken place if you want to walk up those stairs, right? Do you need to stop halfway through as you did before because they hurt so much? What's that level of discomfort? It was an 8 when you started. Is it a 2? Is it a 4? Or has it gone away? That is how you are going to get some idea for yourself of how quickly the body actually takes these redox signals and does something with them. Now, for me, I tested it on people who were about to have a hip replacement at a level 8. That within 2 minutes were in a level 0. I thought that that was pretty mind-blowing. I'd never seen anything that could shift that level of discomfort that fast. And this is not an analgesic. We're actually working in the cell. We're opening up the communication, and the cell is now going to work to do the things it needs to do. Whether it was congested sinuses, whether it was a very severe headache, whether it was a broken toe with bruising that by the following day was no longer showing those signs that we typically see with bruising. All right, this was my journey to building my belief about this and realizing that I had something that I certainly couldn't do with anything else. There was no pill you can rub on a knee and suddenly, yippee, you know, it's not going to be hurting anymore and you're going to be able to climb those stairs. So go out and do this. If you start to use the product, go find some friends and play around with it and kind of see all of the variety of experiences that happen. I think that you will be pretty surprised. For me, it was at least a 10 out of a 10. I want to talk about the fact that with the Renew 28 reflects a clinical study of 28 days. I said this is for anti-aging. Right? You're going to see on the right all of those clinical results. We speed up skin cell renewal by 16%. We change things that really are that outward reflection of aging. And here's the physical example of it. It's just 4 of the photos from the 28-day clinical study, but you can see how it alters those wrinkles, those fine lines, that elasticity, that tone of the skin. And this is an all-over body skincare therapy. Remember, what we may feel like this is the first thing we see in our face in terms of aging, but we're all skin, right? It's the largest organ in the body, so don't feel like you can't put it anywhere to improve things. We moved into how do we take targeted specific botanical ingredients that meet redox standards. In other words, 4 functions that are the gold standard of redox reactions. We blended this into a supportive redox-based skincare technology that surrounds and supports the pure redox in Renew 28. So here we can cleanse the skin, tone it, put a redox serum in, and then protect it with a highly nourishing moisturizer. And all of these are redox reactions that layer and build the redox function. Why? because science knows that skin aging is tied to a loss of redox within the skin. And so this is the only redox-based technology for skin on the market. I want to talk about a quick way to know what redox does. If you're pretty impatient or you have a very busy life and you'd like to be able to take things on the go, we have 3 beautifully practical examples of the science of redox, targeted redox reactions. Again, nutraceuticals, looking at botanical ingredients that are all organic, that again meet criteria of redox function. In this beautiful way, these are much larger molecules that we have put together in a very simple to go powder. You just pop it into water and you can drink it. And it has a lock and key mechanism on cell membranes that produce specific outcomes. In this case, the yellow is energy, sustained energy, not hyper energy, getting into that redox function of the cell to give you a beautiful impact to your energy level. The red is mind, to improve cognitive function, to help memory, attention, and all of those things that are important. And then mood, which is beautiful for anyone who feels overwhelmed nowadays or has any sense of not feeling happy and stable or an even keel. Now, the beauty about these is you can take them singly, you can pop them together, you can drink them cold, you can drink them hot, and they have an impact within 15 to 30 minutes that sustains for a certain amount of time of the day. All of them have functions in them clinically proven to support telomere length. That's a key piece within our DNA that means we either live longer or less. So that's an important function. We have pieces there that also support thyroid function and menopause in the mood. And they are all designed not simply and unusually using digestive processes to work immediately and also to work cumulatively and in the long run if you take them consistently. We support the redox, which is the labor, the activity in the cells that uses the nutrients that we eat and those that we make up for that are not in our food with our supplements, with 4 foundational redox-based organic, whole food, non-GMO products. And with the exception of omega, they are also vegan. I'm not going to go into these. We have a lot of information, but they're designed to be synergistic, not to compete with each other, again, to produce targeted benefits for the whole body to make cells. I want to finish by showing you that this is the traditional aging, right? From 84 to 91, we're seeing more evidence of damage on the inside coming out on the outside as life begins to shrink. Right? But I want to show you that, in fact, we literally do interrupt the breakdown of aging. This is a real case. Rosie, who at 84 started the product, 7 weeks later, she didn't think it was doing anything. And that's why we always remind everybody, take a photo, because we really don't notice our own changes. Her son is a doctor and he had taken the photos and he said, "Mum, take a look at this, honestly." And you can see just in that 7 weeks that how much of that irritation and inflammation is changing and how much life is coming back because there's more energy in her cells, right? But here she is at 91, looking at least 10 years younger. And this is why I do what I do every week, because truly in 23 or 4 years in this field, there is no single product on the market that can do what this does, because there is nothing else that contains what this contains. I have nothing else that could take somebody at 84 and turn them around and make them look at least 10 years younger. That just isn't possible, but it is possible when we bioreplenish, we rebuild these essential cell signaling molecules. We have resources. See a Healthy Self has about 210,000 people. Be invited that by the person that invited you to the call. You heard one of the amazing stories that are on the Real Redox results. And we have the discoverredox.com site, which is full of amazing information, as well as the gettingyoungerclub.com, which is from Dr. David Silverman. I'm going to stop this, come over to Lynn, and Lynn, let's pop you up here and take over and pick up, as we always do, what makes this so unique in its essence of an ethos.
I would love to. You mentioned earlier that Virgis Norton founded this company. He had sat on a board of a little biotech company that was doing work with these molecules, but they didn't know it was the molecules. they were doing work with the FDA, and eventually they ran out of funding. They were being sold off, and he put together a team of people because he had seen, I think you mentioned this, he had seen benefits for himself. As he sat on the board, they gave him access to these molecules, and he was seeing things happen. And he's a very wise man, very strategic, brilliant in the business world. And he just knew that there was something to this. And so he put together a team of investors, and he bought the patents that were currently existing. He bought the rights to the technology, and he hired a whole new team of scientists to figure out, number one, what this was and to try to stabilize it. And while they were doing that, he got a group of people, a focus group, if you will, of 40 people, friends, neighbors, church members, who had varying levels of health. Some of them very dire, who had been told to get their things in order. And he had them try this, and they had access to as much as they wanted. And what he found was within 2 months, not only were many people, if not all, having benefits, but all of a sudden 130 people were on it in a number of different countries. While all that was happening, to him, this was a business play. He was going to stabilize it and then sell it to a pharmaceutical company. So a pharmaceutical company was very interested. They offered him a very large sum of money, but they had one caveat. And that caveat was that every person that was on it, including himself, had to come off it. Literally, he had to kind of close down shop and walk away if he wanted this check. And he was kind of taken aback, because he said, there are at least 6 people who he knew of whose lives were vibrant and surviving because of this. They had turned around that diagnosis they had been given by their doctor. And the pharmaceutical company basically said, look, if you want the money, you walk away. And his decision at that point really became the foundation for the ethos of this company. And honestly, one of the guiding reasons that I am still involved with this 9 years later, and I know, Carolyn, you feel the same way. But he told them that ethically, morally, he could not take this away, especially from those 6 people who had such life-changing results. And he walked away from that very, very large check and decided to found ASEA. And when he did that, he was the vice president of international strategy for Kraft Foods. He brought many iconic products to market. He knew that this product was very unique, that most of us look at labels, and when you look at the label on this, it says sodium chloride in water, which is salt water. Who's going to buy salt water? Most of us, when you see that, think, oh, I can just go mix it up in my kitchen, right? And also, most people have not heard of redox yet. I personally believe it will become a household name in less than 10 years. But most people, as Dr. Hoffman said, even most medical professionals, aren't familiar with the field of redox yet. And so he chose to bring this to market through word of mouth. People telling other people who had experiences, inviting others to a Zoom like this to just get educated about it. And so that's how it began. And one of the things that they wanted to be sure was preserved was this ethos, this culture of serving humanity, of putting people first. And I'll never forget the first time that I went to a conference, because I wasn't looking at this as a business. I was looking at this because it helped my daughter, it helped my family. But then I started to get curious about, who was behind all of this and what was their mindset? Because I really wanted to, I saw the impact it was making. And if I really was going to put myself full in, I wanted to see who was behind this. And I remember sitting there for 8 hours as they went through their entire ethos and the culture of the company. And one of the things that was primary was this idea of people and purpose and principles always coming before ego and economics. They said, obviously, we're running a company, we have to make money, but the decisions that are made at the corporate level are always weighed against how does this benefit people? And that always is a primary motivator, which I was really, really impressed with, because most of us know most corporations don't put people first, right? They put the bottom line first. And I've just watched that play out over the last 9 years. Another thing they talked about was the idea of serving people, right? That it's important when you're having an interaction with somebody to just really listen and to serve what they need. At the end of that conversation, if they decide to see as something for them, great. If they decide it's not, at least you've made their day better. And again, that was something so foreign in the corporate world. So each of those pieces of their ethos, they have really worked to keep as one of the 5 pillars of the corporate structure. And that has played out over these 9 years. So I think it's really important as people are learning about this. Absolutely, you need to learn how profound redox is, the technology and the product that they've brought to market. But I think almost as important is the people behind it and this heart and soul that this company absolutely has. So I'm always grateful to have a few minutes on a Tuesday to share that with everyone, because honestly, I don't have to do this. What keeps me doing this is the lives I have seen changed by this technology, and the type of people that this attracts are some of the most wonderful people I've ever had the pleasure to work with and call friends and even family. So I just wanted to take the few minutes to tell you that. I know we have a few questions in the chat, so I'm going to turn this over back to you, Carolyn, so that we can answer those questions.
Okay. Wonderful. I was there. Yeah, so important to share that piece of it. It really is. All right, so we're just going to, before we move on to the questions and answers, we just need to do our own disclaimer, just to let you know. He turned down the money from the pharmaceuticals, so now we're in the nutritional arena, and the FDA regulate the nutritional arena. So we're not allowed to diagnose, treat, or cure. All right, we can't discuss specific medical conditions in that way, but I will share with you my experience as a practitioner. I'll share an answer from what I'm knowing as a naturopath, and I'll connect the dots for you about how this product technology works. I do want to say that, again, we mentioned that it is non-toxic. You can actually drink a whole bottle of this a day, and that was what Dan was doing. We hopefully don't need to be doing that, but it is non-toxic, so you can. You can't be allergic to it. We're making it as we speak. Otherwise, we face plant and we're done in 3 seconds, right? So that's how essential it is. And again, this is the only product technology I've ever had the chance to work with that does not interfere with medication. So if you're on meds, the beauty about that is you stay on your medication. We don't want anyone changing any of that. It's not our role. It's not our right to tell you to come off any medication whatsoever. You stay on it, you benchmark, and there is a form to do this. Everything about your health, all the things, not just the big things, everything that you're interested in, what your skin looks like, how well you sleep, what your digestion is, what your endocrine system is, everything about your health. Right, and you just track the changes. Now, if you are on blood pressure medication, that would be one caveat that I will say to you. Go into this slower than we would do otherwise. Why? Because most people on blood pressure medication are pretty toxic because of the drugs. And we therefore, if we start to support the body to come back to a place of balance, it kicks out all the junk in the cells. That's healing, or we've got to go to that place, but we just don't want to do it too fast and push the blood pressure up. And so a couple of things when I'm getting people to start who are on blood pressure medication, I will tell them start drinking extra water when we order it, so that by the time you get there, you're already more hydrated. And then we will do 1 ounce a day for 3 or 4 days, and just check any shifts that are happening and go in slowly. Some people it's absolutely fine, but we just can't, we don't want to take the risk that we push up the blood pressure because we're helping normalize things too fast. If you're on diabetic medication, so blood sugar medication of any kind, we set as a prerequisite that you're willing to take your blood sugar tests every day before you use your medication, because again, if we give you more redox and your body marches its way back to the space where it was working better when it had more redox and it doesn't need those drugs, right? We don't want you lowering your blood sugar with taking medication when your blood sugar may be beginning to come into a better place. So those are the 2 things that we often see that people will tell us, oh, things started to change for me. So I checked with my doctor, and my doctor made an adjustment. He took me off this blood pressure medication, or he took it in half, or my insulin started going down. And lots of people will report that they're not on medication over time. But that's not our place. Nobody can tell you to do that. You have to negotiate that with your doctor and to make sure that we're in a safe place. So let's talk about the questions